Hey gang, Insane Mike here with the last video in my top 100 favorite movies videos. We are down to the last 7 films. Woo! It's been a long ride. But thanks for sticking with me through it. It's been a little cathartic as well, getting to go through these movies, and I'm ready to marathon all 100 of them. That would be awesome. So let's get into it, shall we? Out of these last 7, we've got a couple more Peter Jackson films here. This is the one movie that he made between Bad Taste and Dead Alive. He had, I remember reading, maybe it was Gore Zone magazine back in the day, the sister magazine to Fangoria. The one magazine that covered the gorier films that Fangoria wouldn't cover. And there was an article about Peter Jackson and Bad Taste and his next film to come out, which was written out of the pure frustration of having difficulties getting financing to make Dead Alive. So out of anger, he wrote a script about basically the Muppets on Acid, where it's a movie entirely with puppets, cute puppets, something for the children, but there's like drug abuse and prostitution and sex trafficking and mass murder and suicide. And we're talking about 1989's Meet the Feebles. This movie is one of the most disturbing movies ever made because it has every bit of exploitation, grindhouse-ness in it. You got a hippo gunning down a whole theater of people with a machine gun. You got a rabbit who's dying from a venereal disease. You've got a fly reporter that's eating shit straight out of the toilet. And it's all puppets. But the puppet work in this movie, beyond the fact that it's so out of nowhere and bizarre and crazy, the puppet work in this movie and the puppet designs in this movie are great. They do a really good job of the puppet work in this. It's just great. It's just so sad this movie has been so mistreated. The best version I've been able to ever find of this movie is this DVD here, released on the Dead Alive label. No bonus features, but worse off, it's off of a really bad print. It's like ripped straight from some 35mm print somewhere, where you can still see the cigarette burns between each reel. And there's even a whole like 2 or 3 lines that are missing from the film when it switches reel to reel. A really heavy, physically painful jump cut that happens between a couple reels in the middle of the film. Oh, it's a bummer because the movie's so great, and I don't know if it's just like Peter Jackson's ashamed of it and has buried it. I don't know what the problem is. But speaking of like forgotten Peter Jackson films, there's another film that he made that very few people know about. It was made for New Zealand television and released in the States. It's a short film. It's a little less than an hour, so to call it a movie, is maybe a little problematic. Traditionally an hour and a half is a feature film. It's from 1995, and I love this movie because you want to talk about. I talked about before about I love mockumentaries, especially love mockumentaries that can practically fool the audience, and this is a mockumentary that not only came close to fooling me, but did fool a whole audience in New Zealand to the point where the station that broadcast it got a ton of angry letters when the truth came out. And it's called Forgotten Silver. It's a mockumentary about this New Zealand filmmaker that Peter Jackson uncovered all of these old films by this filmmaker, and uncovered all this history that this filmmaker put New Zealand on the map as being the guy who revolutionized almost everything, every technology in cinema. He was the first guy to put sound in a film. He was the first guy to put color in a film. But this filmmaker had such bad luck that all of his films were highly unsuccessful or buried or never even released, even though he had all these like technological achievements. It's an awesome documentary. Or mockumentary, and if you were to watch this cold, you would have been totally fooled. And a whole nation in New Zealand was fooled when they saw this, to the point where they wanted this fake character in this movie to be recognized as such a pioneer in the art of film. And speaking of the art of film, we're going to go back to Mel Brooks, to what I think is his best movie of all time, because of the painstaking care to. I mean, he's famous for doing a lot of satire and parody, much like my favorite, musician, Weird Al, and how Weird Al will work really hard to try to match the original artist as best as possible, because the joke is funnier when it sounds so dang close. And Mel Brooks doing the same thing in cinema, and no other film of his tries harder to match the original look and feel of what he's satirizing than Young Frankenstein from 1974. This movie could be mistaken for an actual Universal Frankenstein movie. The way it looks and sounds, and the sets and all of that stuff, like it belongs within the Frankenstein franchise of Universal Films back in the day. So, but beyond that, it's funny as hell. It's hilarious. It's awesome. Marty Feldman's the man. Gene Wilder is also the man. Couple more John Waters films to show up on the list. This is a 2-pack with Polyester and Desperate Living. Polyester's great, and one of the things I love about Polyester, my favorite aspect of Polyester, is the whole use of odorama, which is such a nod to William Castle. It's awesome. But Desperate Living trumps Polyester for me. Desperate Living it's got to be right up there with Multiple Maniacs as being John Waters' craziest film with the most outrageous characters. The whole town of Mortville is just, it is a demented, disturbing fairy tale, and I love this movie a lot. So Polyester didn't quite make the top 100. So when I said I had 2 more John Waters films to talk about, fortunately Polyester didn't make the top 100, but Serial Mom did. Man, Serial Mom's such a great movie, and this is such a tribute to early gore meisters like Herschel Gordon Lewis. Even though this movie's really not that gory, I mean, it's not gory at all, really. Like the only real gore you get is the scene in the bathroom where she shoves the fire poker through somebody and pulls out their liver. But it's crisp and clean. It's like a store-bought liver. It's not gross at all. It's kind of funny on just how bloodless it actually is, and that's part of the joke. But man, this movie is great, and Kathleen Turner is in the lead of this film. I fell in love with. I mean, I'd seen Kathleen Turner in movies up to this point, but I fell in love with her in Serial Mom. She just really put herself out there, and you have to when you're in a John Waters movie. But kudos to her for her being in this movie. And I forgot the rest of the cast. You got Ricky Lake, who's awesome, but Matthew Lillard. I love Matthew Lillard. He doesn't spit in this movie, which is unusual. But then it's also got Sam Waterston in this movie, who up until that point I only knew him from like TV shows like The Practice, where he just plays things so straight-laced and always wearing the suits and all that stuff. And to see him let loose, like everyone else does in Serial Mom, is a treat, man. Serial Mom, by the way, from 1994. So this is after movies like Hairspray and Crybaby. So not quite the grindhouse, no-budget look of the early John Waters films, but still the pure exploiting of bad taste that all of his films have. and the underdog aspect of all of his films have. You know, there's a lot of John Waters fans out there that feel like once he made Hairspray, he sold out and he lost his touch with Bad Taste. And I completely disagree with that. I still feel like all those films still have a level of bad taste to them. And his films are also so much more than just the bad taste aspect and the gross humor aspect. All of his movies are truly about underdogs. And so in even a movie like Hairspray, where this heavyset teenager should not in 50s society with her crazy hair and her weight issues be a TV teen idol, but she manages to do it anyway. So, only a couple more to go. I gotta get through this. And that's truly what goes on in John Waters movies. Anyway, John Waters, love John Waters all day long. But that was the last of the John Waters movies that actually made the top 100. I love all of his movies, but Hairspray, Cry Baby, Multiple Maniacs, Mondo, blanking on the name, Mondo, whatever, all those other films, I love them. They just didn't quite make the top 100. One more George Romero movie, and again, George Romero, another filmmaker that I love every single one of his movies, but not all of them made the top 100. This is the last one to make the top 100, though, Day of the Dead. This was the one. All three of the Dead trilogies have a special place in my heart that really influenced the person that I am today. I talked about how Dawn of the Dead influenced me in realizing that filmmaking is an art, that there is an art to filmmaking, especially in the horror genre, and it's more than just the kills and the gore, even though Dawn of the Dead still gives you that as the viewer. Night of the Living Dead taught me that horror movies are not safe. The creepiness of Night of the Living Dead and the tragic ending. I mean, spoiler alert, everybody dies at the end of Night of the Living Dead. And for me, I was just really starting to get into horror at that time, and most of the films I had watched up to that point are like Universal monster movies or 50s giant monster sci-fi films. Or alien films or whatever, and all of those play it safe, where they have little happy endings at the end. And Night of the Living Dead was the first movie that showed me, like, not every story ends happy, and really, so it really taught me a whole new level in the genre. And then Day of the Dead was the movie that taught me that I love special effects, and I wanted to be a special effects makeup artist. I still dabble in special effects makeup to this day. But the craftsmanship that went on in Day of the Dead with all these gory scenes, and I wasn't looking at like gross and gore, I was looking at pure craftsmanship and techniques used that still baffle me today, even though, I've learned how most of them are done through Tom Savini's Grand Illusion books. But I remember first time watching that movie and like, how in the hell did they do that effect? So, last film out of the 100. This is it, the final film. Sam Raimi back on the list with Evil Dead 2. Sorry, no Army of Darkness in the top 100. But I'd be a bad person if Evil Dead 2 didn't make the top 100. This movie's great. I think I've definitely watched this more than the original Evil Dead. So, and it's another awesome tin set that is numbered. So this one is 27,578 out of 50,000. So there you go. That's it, boys and girls. That is my 100 favorite movies of all time. As soon as I shut this camera off, I'm going to be like, oh, no, this one should have been on the list, not that one. So that's just the way it goes. But I did the best that I could. Now that this series is over, I can move on to doing some other things. Like I know I've had requests to do more makeup videos, so I'm going to definitely do that. And there's some other things that I want to do with these Patreon videos as well. But I hope you got something out of this series. It was, you know, even though it was, you know, I'm up really late at night. I shot them all in a row. My voice is going. It's practically gone. I'm deadbeat tired. I've got movies strung out all over the house. I've overly stressed myself out with doing it. But at the end of the day, I had a lot of fun going through these titles and sharing them with you, and sharing basically a piece of myself with you guys. Because these movies, I feel like, more than just my favorite 100 movies, but they're also kind of a reflection of me and my tastes and my personality. So I really hope you enjoyed this series, considering that you've had to sit through, like, what, I don't even know how many I've done at this point, but I'm going to sign off. Thanks again for watching these. Thanks again for donating to Patreon. And hopefully we'll see you again really soon with something different, a different set of videos to come out. So we'll talk to you later, and thanks and bye.